It's in the document if you want to put it inside of the chat, and you want to find it and read it before we talk to Dellinger at 8:15. If you have not already done so, I would say, man, I hope you do, because it's a great read. Obviously, Dellinger, very talented writer.
The cover alone is worth at least looking at.
Well, I mean, the art.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the cover of the, I guess Sports Illustrated, however they're doing digital media now, but this is awesome.
It's a great read, and yes, it's a very colorful. I
don't know if Brian Kelly would have thought this would be this is what they would depict of him, but this is where he is right now. Let's go, dude. Have a little bit of fun.
Kelly is. I think the story on Kelly is people are curious of what this is going to do for LSU, what's going to do for Brian Kelly. Everybody that Dellinger talks to in this article, and he talks to former coaches that have coached along with Kelly. They've got coaches on the current staff like Brian Polian, who are quoted in here with Brian Kelly's story. Talk about just how much success and how good of a communicator and how good of an organizer that Brian Kelly is, and what he comes to LSU lacking on his resume only as a national championship, and how he has to really turn LSU in to a consistent winner. The 19 years, 3 head coaches, national champions, but the inconsistent ride that LSU football has been on in those 19 years is something that Kelly has been brought in to stabilize and really, try and set on track to attain consistent winning. And the article is really cool on, his first visit with Will Campbell's dad. That was his first recruiting visit in Louisiana as LSU's head coach. Was going up to Monroe and eating some etouffee at the Campbell's house.
Down a couple beers,
drinking beers. I wonder how many beers Bull Campbell crushes.
Put down, and Brian Kelly's like, I don't want to get into a contest with this man.
Man.
He's had 4, and BK's on 1.
And it talks about Kelly kind of walking in and putting his foot in his mouth immediately, with Campbell's mom, asking her if she was the one that was cooking the etouffee, and it was on Kelly kind of talking about how he had not given the room enough time to realize that Bull Campbell, the dad, was actually the cook, and he thought that he had to make up a lot of recruiting ground there. It's just good stories to kind of look back on the last couple of months from LSU's football's point of view, and how they got here, and how they got to this point with Kelly now wrapping up the first week of spring practice, the last week of spring practice under his direction in the first year. And it also talked about, I don't even know if the people within the organization, it definitely seems like Brian Kelly didn't have a grasp on it, but even the people that were selling the job, right? Stephanie Rimp, Scott Woodward, Verge Alsbury, and the executive committee for LSU, the amount of organizational disarray that LSU football was in, I think, was underestimated by everybody in this equation. Really, Brian Kelly, obviously. I mean, he talked about the organizational health of the program being the worst that he's ever seen. And it's 40 years of coaching. It's a hell of a grind. It's a hell of a, experiences that he's gained along the way. And when he got to Baton Rouge, he looked at the state of LSU football and said, my God, this is as bad as I've ever seen as far as just the organization of the program, right? Like protocols and, people as far as working orders go.
I would imagine just the day-to-day.
Everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seemed like, departments were screwed up. Nobody had official, were working within their official titles. Nobody had chain of commands. Nobody knew where to start. I mean, as a young business owner right now in the infancy of starting an organization and hoping to build and develop something that can thrive into the long term. I mean, what I am struggling with as, kind of the top of the chain in right now is placing organizational strategy to the day-to-day operations of the program.
It's harder than y'all think.
It's a lot harder. And this is on a very granular level.
Right.
I mean, a football program at the college level, in the SEC West that wins national championships at a school like LSU. I mean, it could be so overwhelming that you just push away. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I'm not doing this. I don't even know where to start. And it looks like that web was so entangled and just so crossed over of, disorganization and people not understanding their role, where they fit in, what the message was supposed to be, all of that stuff that, goes into running a very clear-cut, organized program was what LSU was sincerely lacking. Like they were just they were so far behind the competition. And I think NIL is something that we could probably look at and use it as an example, but that would cross over to a multitude of divisions within the program: recruiting, roster management, nutrition, off-season, weight program, everything that goes into running a college football program. While LSU was having, success, it wasn't sustained because it just wasn't organized.
Yeah.
It just wasn't, there was no structure to it. And you can bring Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Patrick Queen and Christian Fulton and, Grant Delpit and
Justin Jefferson,
all these guys, and they can cover up a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, you bring those guys in and you're like, well, I mean, we don't really have that figured out yet. You're like, well, you got Joe Burrow and you're okay. He can cover it up. So, I mean, outside of those 2 years, I mean, you kind of take those out as the outlier, right? And kind of look at the whole dysfunction of the program and understand just what Kelly is tasked with trying to put together. And by all accounts, in what Dellinger writes up and some of the, the evidence that he backs it up with people that have been alongside him, to people that have seen him do what he is being asked to do in Baton Rouge, he seems like a great fit. He really does. He seems like and I know that we've said this before, but, just reacting to the story and now having, only 1 week left to judge what he's doing on the field after seeing him through these spring drills, he very much feels like the right guy at the right time for LSU football. To come in here and really just kind of flip it on its head, smoke out all of the, uncommitted and unaware of what the job entails and what the job is being asked of them to do, and find structures and put procedures in place with the right people and, continue to recruit and develop at a high level. And that has always been a scary scenario for LSU's competition. I think everybody has known since Nick Saban has left that if that guy would have stayed, LSU would have been Alabama. And if they ever find the guy who can figure it out, he may not be Saban, but they'll always be a player. They can be Clemson, where every single year you got to worry about them making a run at a national championship, making a run at an SEC title, and just being relevant. And I think once Kelly can figure out the back office stuff, which, like I said, I don't even know if the people selling the job knew how screwed up it was.
I don't think they did.
But now you have an idea when you got the guy in place that says, hey, look, we got to get into that corner over there and we got to start, peeling back the onion and throwing away the trash and throwing away the stuff that doesn't work and finding the ways and finding the things that do work. And I think that, he's done that. He's done that in the short term. Does it mean he wins 10 games in year one? No, it doesn't. But to me, the long term of it, and that's why it's a scary situation for a guy like Kayshawn right now. And I'm not getting into the vehicle stuff because I don't know the details of it. Sure, I've heard and I've seen, and there's nothing official that's being reported, so we're not going to talk about rumors over here.
They haven't even said his name in the paper, right?
No.
They haven't even listed who he is, that it's him.
Right. But the scary proposition for me looking at Kayshawn is that, hey, Brian Kelly's got a 10-year deal. Brian Kelly is secure in that he's going to be here 5, 6, 7 years from now. Kayshawn sat right there and said he's really only here for one more year. And I don't think that surprised anybody by hearing that. But what it tells Brian Kelly and the staff is that we're going to be here for 10. Or at least contractually, that's what it says we're going to be here for. We're going to be here for a long time. We're not going to spin our wheels on trying to motivate what could possibly be the best player in college football for just one season of production. If this is what it's going to be, and I'm not saying that there's any, but you can tell by some of the comments that Kelly has made about Kayshawn, about, hey, we know his last name now, kind of like, oh, we kind of see him around more. And then Kayshawn's comments when he sat here and said a couple of things, I just think that, that's where Brian Kelly is. Like, hey, look, man, whether you're our best player or you're a walk-on, we're not waiting on you. We're not waiting on you to say, okay, I get it now. I'll tag along.
Was that wrong of him to say that he would only be here for another year?
No, I don't think so. But it shows you his mentality.
Right.
And it shows you where he is.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's surprising to nobody. Nobody heard that at LSU. No fan heard that and said, wow, Kayshawn's planning on leaving after his third year. Uh-huh. I think everybody expected that.
I know,
but now the chips are on the table.
Like
you know what I mean? It's out loud. You know what I mean? It's been said. And Kelly knows that the short-term hurdles are not worth the long-term vision, right? Like if you can't buy in right now, then, I'm not saying that he's going to throw Kayshawn off the team, and I'm not even saying that Kayshawn's at a point where that's the discussion. But there has been points where there's been a lot of push and pull, it feels like, between Kayshawn and LSU up to this point. And the stories of Dwight McGlothern and the stories of Trey Palmer, those have to resonate inside the walls of that locker room. Where Ross Dellinger writes a little bit about it. He doesn't name them, but he says early on, guys that were late to workouts, didn't show up to the nutrition center on time, didn't show up to the academic support on time. Simple. I need your iPad, clean your locker out. Doesn't matter who you are, what type of player you are. If you're not bought in, they can't wait on you in year one.
Did they even get another chance? Or did he just kicked him out and that was it?
I don't know, but it did seem like Brian Kelly's not going to sacrifice his core principles for anybody.
Yeah,
like he's letting.
He shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. I mean, a lot of coaches could come into a situation like LSU where you don't really know anything, but you got players already on the roster, like guys that, especially the way that it was left, the one or two guys that you do need on the team are probably going to be people you're going to have to massage and work with. And instead, Brian Kelly said, "No, I'm not." He almost used that as an example for what he's going to set moving forward. Like it was a learning moment for the rest of the locker room because it probably shook them to the core. Had to. I mean, new guy coming in, he could have kowtowed and been like, "Oh, okay, let's let everybody get used to." He's like, "No, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Y'all have to get with me. I'm the head coach." And so it was a moment for him to kind of flex and say, "This is where I stand. This is how my program's going to be. The transfer portal might be for you."
I mean, those are the hard conversations that you have to have inside of college walls and to be relevant in college football. I mean,
well, he had to look around like, this shit is not going to be how it is.
Right.
Like, whatever y'all are doing right now is not the way it's going to be moving forward. And then by moving forward, I mean starting right now, today.
Yeah.
Like, we're not doing this. Whatever y'all were doing, having, you know, the run of the roost and doing kind of whatever you wanted, that shit, it ends now. And that's what he had to do. You have to put your foot down because the place was a mess.
Well, every player I feel like that has sat here too has agreed with that and liked it and is thriving in that type of discipline.
Structure.
You still see, I think at the end of the day, people want to be disciplined.
Yeah.
They want to be in structure. They want to have, you know, marks that they need to hit to know that they are doing what they're supposed to do. And I think when you have, I mean, you saw Major Burns. I mean, we'll talk to Malik Neighbors today. He's going to be through here at around noon. You know, I think those types of players, I mean, those guys have really embraced that type of organizational structure. And, you know, a lot of these guys, they need that in their life right now. You know, I mean, it's something that I think that they're desperate for. It's almost why you come to a university and a program of this size with all of these with all of this support, with all of these systems put in place, that they're ready to help you, whether it's just become a better football player, become a better student, to become a better person. They've got all these resources and financial commitments to organizations and softwares and nutrition and personnel that can help you out. I think a lot of people want that, right? And I don't know if LSU has had the right boundaries and structure put in place to really execute that. They have the facilities, they have the money, they have, in some circumstances, they have the personnel. You know, I mean, Chef Michael Johnson, the head nutritionist at LSU, they got him from the Seattle Seahawks. They opened up a nutrition center and said, who's doing it well? Who's doing it right? Up at Seattle, Paul Allen and those guys have really embraced that. Hire their chef. Johnson was from South Louisiana. He wanted to come home. It made sense. Now he's here. I mean, they've got the right people in certain places. Now it's, I think, Kelly's task to really structure that, organize that, build protocol to that, build procedure to that, and now develop and thrive the program.